All right, so we are on the last part of key terms, and this is religious orientations. Religious orientations are how we are going to connect to the divine, how we connect to the ultimate power, to what is sacred, to the spiritual components in our lives. What separates us from, the profane, the ordinary, the ordinary. All right, so there are more than four, but there are primarily four major religious orientations. So the first one is the sacramental. So this means I connect to the divine when I am partaking in a ritual. When I am performing that ritual, I feel the presence of the divine. I feel like I am practicing my spirituality, my religion. I have this experience of the divine, of the sacred, of the spiritual, of the religious. And it's because I'm doing these rituals. Prophetic has two areas really for this connection. The one part is the idea of reading. It is that when I have my sacred book in front of me, or Kindle or online, it doesn't matter what the format is, but when I have these writings, I feel that through reading them, through connecting with these myths, these sacred stories, that is how I become aware of the spiritual, the religious, the divine. I experience that connection. The other component of that is by living what these sacred stories share, specifically morally. So prophetic is also the ethical and the moral living from reading the text, reading the prophecies, reading these sacred stories. And so that's another way that a person might connect spiritually, religiously to the divine, to the sacred. With social, we're saying that it is when I am with friends, family, when I am with fellow believers, people who are of the same faith community, religious community, spiritual community, where the phrase, where two or more are gathered. In that sense in that situation is where that sense of the spiritual shows up. The religious experience, the connection to the ultimate, to the divine, shows up when I am with fellow believers, when I am part of that community. Okay, the last one is, or the last main one, is the mystical. So the mystical also sort of has two components to it. One is this experience of divine union. Now, it can be connected to a ritual. It can be connected to the prophetic. It can be connected to the social. But it's something that ends up giving you almost like an enlightenment experience, an experience of fauna, experience of satori. You'll learn these words as we go through the course. But it's this notion of some sense of divine unity. Every single thing is interconnected. Think monism or think pantheism as part of this mystical experience. It doesn't dilute the personal spiritual connection, but rather expands it to something greater. The other component is this transcendental experience of being perhaps outside of the body. So we think out-of-body experiences, we think near-death experiences, and a whole host of other types of experience that come into this mystical connection to the divine. That can be religious, spiritual, sacred in some way to us. And it's a very, very deep connection that happens with the ultimate, with the divine, in the mystical approach or the mystical orientation. Yes, those mystical experiences may or may not be aided by other things. So we have, for instance, just as an example, transcendental meditation can be considered a mystical experience. Ayahuasca can be considered something that helps with that mystical experience. All right. Thank you very much.